Good day, everyone, and welcome to another special edition of the Citizens Conversation. My name is Bukola Adimula from Citizens Common, and I will be the one moderating this panel discussion to commemorate the International Youth Day. As we all know, August 12th has been set aside by the United Nations as a day for the youth and also to draw attention to issues surrounding youth in the world. This year, International Youth Day theme is Green Skills for Youth Towards Building a Sustainable World. According to the United Nations, green transition is going to create about 8.4 million jobs for young people by 2030. Therefore, there is a need for young people to be equipped with the right green skills so as to navigate this changing world. In today's conversation, we will be discussing tackling unemployment issue using green skills in Nigeria. And with me today are three youth leaders who are passionate about youth inclusion and engagement in their field. I will give them the opportunity to introduce themselves, starting from my right.
Thank you so much for having me here. My name is Blessing Ewa. I'm the founder of Young Advocates for a Sustainable and Inclusive Future, a youth organization that works with young people to mobilize grassroots women to contribute their quota towards building a sustainable environment, so where we build climate-conscious mindsets in the grassroots. I'm also the West Africa coordinator for Net Zero as soon as possible, workplace ambassador scheme that sees that people in the workplace contribute their quota towards promoting climate action in the workplace. And it's really a privilege to be here with you today.
Thank you so much for joining us, Blessing.
All right. My name is Samuel Peter, and I am the Deputy Speaker of the Nigerian Youth Parliament. I represent the FCT Senatorial District at the Parliament. And as a young leader in politics, we are actually passionate about youth inclusion and participation in politics and governance at all levels, both from the federal, the state, and also at the local government levels. And aside that, I am an entrepreneur. I own a growing business in the fashion industry. I make shoes. So I also use every opportunity I get to encourage young Nigerians to learn a skill that can help them build a sustainable life for themselves. I'm really excited and happy to be here this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us, Samuel, or should I say Honorable Samuel? Okay, and our last guest.
Okay, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Moyosoluwa Oladayo. I'm an international development practitioner. I work with voluntary service overseas as a global volunteer for development officer, basically supporting VSO 18 countries to promote volunteering frameworks and practices, and also to promote volunteering programs in the countries. And as a YALI is a Young African Leaders Initiative, an initiative created by the US government to build young Africans in various sectors, especially focusing on business, public service programs, and civil service space, yes. And for my role in YALI as a coordinator, I'm basically like the servant leader. Let me put myself as that. I won't go into details. I'm also passionate about the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm the founder of the SDGs Connect, an advocacy platform for promoting sustainable development goals in Nigeria. We started as a YouTube content, now have a live radio program that airs every Friday, and also an annual summit. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm glad that we're talking about green economy, and we know how that drives the SDGs. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us, Moyo, in this conversation. I mean, before we go straight to the conversation and the asking of the question, I just want us to let's define the baseline. Starting with you, Blessing. I mean, you're a climate enthusiast. You do that. So can you just give us a brief definition or explanation of what green skills are and their role in building a sustainable world?
Okay, so when we talk about green skills, it's those are like skills or knowledge that you acquire that helps you build sustainable environments. So just like you acquire either soft or hard skills to promote sustainable development, green skills is just basically targeted towards promoting or preserving the environment. So that's why the name green skills.
Okay. So, quick one, a follow-up question.
Yeah.
What are the example of those green skills?
I'll give an example like clean energy, for instance, where you get to make like solar panels, and then you talk about circular economy, where you get to do like recycling plastics or metals. And so those are like ways of reducing emission, because also another thing I forgot to mention earlier, when you're talking about green skills, you have to talk about what activities or what knowledge you have in place that will help reduce emission in the environment, because that's what you're actually targeting by introducing green skills in the whole economy. So when we talk about clean energy, it's a way of saying, okay, whatever it is you're doing, it's reducing emission into the atmosphere. When you talk about recycling, that circular economy now, it's whatsoever it is, like what these things you throw, like plastics, for instance, when you dispose them off, they become like very dangerous to the environment. So you taking it back, recycling it, turning it to another useful product is a way of saving the environment from that kind of pollution that, of course, releases methane, which is not really good for the environment. We still have others like planting of trees. That is something that people get to do because we use trees a lot, and then taking trees from the atmosphere, from the environment, tends to increase carbon footprint. But when you plant more trees, it reduces it, because this is what trees do, tend to take in this carbon and then release oxygen into the environment. So things like these that you see that help in saving the environment from what we call climate change is where we go to learn green skills so that we can become part and parcel of this whole action.
Okay, thank you so much for that explanation. I mean, we kind of like understand what green skills is now. Thank you so much. I'm going to you, Moyo. From your angle, what do you think? I mean, she mentioned some recycling, planting of trees, etc. But from your own angle, what are some job opportunity do you think exists within the ecosystem that can create job opportunity for young Nigerians?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. And I would actually like to talk about the unemployment rates that we have. And because when she was talking about the green skills, promoting the SDGs, I'd like to make it really plain, because when she was talking about the carbon, the methane, and someone is going to be wondering, okay, let's start with all this big test. Whatever skills you acquire to make the environment safe for you, that's what we call safe environment. What practices? It could be your traditional practices, like she was talking about saving the plastics and things like that. So we even in collaboration with Blessing, we've done something around waste management. And you know how people don't understand that there is wealth in even waste management. We have the waste to wealth creation program, where you keep your waste, the ones that we can recycle, and you have the recycling agents that will come get them for you, and in exchange for money, for cash actually. We've had people who also did that in the past for even children who couldn't pay school fees to pay their fees by donating the bottles to agents or waste collectors. So what we are talking about is a huge industry, because it's beyond just collecting the trash, it's what you produce out of it. So there are lots of value chain that you can get, and that industry is one industry that we are yet to utilize fully in Nigeria. Yes, we have a couple of organizations and private firms collecting waste, but you see the recycling part is a bigger one that we are yet to really maximize. So if we go into that route, so we can get job creation there. And recently, I know when we're talking about green skills, we look more into the climate sector, even in hospitality. Yeah, so I went recently to Rwanda, and it was written there, because we want to be climate friendly and everything, we won't come wash your bed sheets every day. You need to let us know when to come change. This is us trying to save water. And they give you all the reasons why you have to be mindful. Do you get it? That is also being conscious that for every time you're not responsible, there is a responsible consumption among the goals. When you're not responsible with your consumption as well, it affects this. So I would say there are lots of opportunities, even if you are in the education sector, for instance. let's say you want to be creative about this art, this illustration work that you share as a teacher. You could tap into that. What PET bottles, what plastic, what pencils can you recycle to bring these things to life? And as a young person, you can also be creative to do that and say, okay, for your illustration work in school, I'm going to be selling this to you. That's another job opportunity. There are various, so you just have to be creative and be conscious that you want to save the environment. So you must be smart about it as well. So it has to be sustainable, it has to be time conscious, it has to be so many things. But let's keep it there.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I think the first point you mentioned about organizations that you can exchange, I think something like Echo Bata does something like that. They kind of you give them on their website. I saw it that if you give them maybe a plastic waste, they call it waste. When you give them the waste, they are going to weigh it, and should I say the weight of your waste will depend on the points they will give you. Then for that point, you can either redeem it as money or as other stuff.
Yes, there are organizations like
those are actually good initiatives.
Yeah, and we also have one. I didn't know we could actually mention names. So we have one initiative, one program we did around Yaya Maraba. So there is this waste point already under the bridge, that Yaya Bridge. And people said they didn't actually know that they could take their trash there to exchange. So what we did with them was to go to the garage, the main Yaya garage, did cleaning, but after the cleaning, we did sorting with them. Okay. So we just didn't clean, but we told them after sensitizing them and directing them to the nearest point. I call it waste collection hub. Center. I don't know if that's the name. We also did the sorting so that they could see how to separate the useful ones from the ones that won't be accepted. Like sachet, but pure water sachet is also acceptable, you know. There are ways people transform it into bricks. Yeah, there are all those other things like that. So I feel we should also take that as something we share to the people.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. I mean, I'm still looking at how sustainable that is in creating job. You dumping your waste. I don't well from my angle. I mean, we'll come back to that, but let me go to our honorable.
Yeah, let
me go to our honorable. So, as the deputy speaker for the Nigerian Youth Parliament, I'm representing us, the youth, there, right? Thank you so much. From your angle, what are the innovative policies that you think government can do to improve the job opportunity for young Nigeria when it comes to building a sustainable environment?
Well, there are a lot of things that government can do. There are a lot of things that private individuals can also do. There are a lot of things that organizations can do. And just like you cited an example with one, where you collect waste, it is weighed, and then the weight of the waste is what gives you a point that can be redeemed as either cash or other for their products. Now, these initiatives are very, very good initiatives to reduce the amount of waste that we have in our environment. So if we have government putting in place very strategic policies to enhance this kind of initiatives, I think it will go a long way in addressing the environmental pollutions that we have. Because the truth is, we have attitudinal problems in Nigeria where somebody is just driving in his car, drinks water from a bottle and just throws it out of the window. Now, what do you expect is going to happen to that bottle you threw out? It's not something that can decay in a very short space of time. In fact, there are times that you see people maybe excavate things from the ground. You see bottles that have stayed for over 20 years because they cannot decay. So if we have government keying into these initiatives, creating more waste collection centers, like the one she talked about in Nyanya, not so many people know that there is a waste collection center there. But anytime I'm coming to town, because I stay in Karo, and passing through the bridge, I always see that container by the side. But not many people actually pay attention to that container to know what is actually being done there. Now imagine that you're making money from collecting plastic waste. This is an opportunity for people to make money. If you go out there on the street, you have a lot of young people who don't have what they are doing to sustain themselves. What is wrong in going around and collecting these things? Even if you, as a young person, you cannot collect it yourself, you can hire people to collect it for you. You become like a middleman. They collect this waste, they bring it to you, you sort them, or you even teach them how to sort these things and know the ones that can be renewed. And then you take it to these centers and you make money from it. Because the truth is, if we keep waiting for government jobs or white-collar jobs, as we call it, we may actually not be able to meet that need, because the unemployment rate every now and then is increasing. Now there are centers, there are youth centers scattered across the country where they teach people how to recycle even used tires, vehicle tires. They turn them into furnitures, they make chairs, they make stools, and a lot of things from it. In fact, there's something I saw that interested me so well. I saw a building like a house with plastic bottles. Like they collect used plastic bottles, fill them with sands, cover, and then use them to build things. I was like, no, this is the way to go. Now, if we begin to encourage initiatives like that, and then government invests funds into creating these kind of centers, I think it will really go a long way in addressing these environmental issues that we have. And well, there are so many skills that fall under the green skills. She talked about farming. It's not just farming, but organic farming, because there are a lot of things we use in farming that actually still pollutes the environment. So we now need to change our approach to farming, embrace more organic ways of farming. Because even the fertilizers we use, the chemicals, they also have a way of polluting the environment. So if we go green, if we go natural, it will help even our well-being as a people, and then it will also help us as a nation to address many of our challenges.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I wanted to say we are not eating it on what the government should do, but I just noticed that you later mentioned, oh, government should fund.
Government can do a lot of things, like open centers, create centers, and they shouldn't just be centers, but very functional centers, because I know that there's a Nigerian factor that affects us so well. We end up creating platforms that we don't even pay attention to. There is a youth center at Nyanya. Now, not many youth, even in that axis, are aware that there's a youth center there. Now, in that center, they have different workshops. There's a mechanic, welding, fashion, ICT, and all of those. The truth is that these centers are not functioning optimally, because government is not investing as they should in these centers. Now, if you go to that place, it's a very big place, but at a point in time, it looked like an abandoned site. The buildings, nothing to write home about, the hostels. In fact, it's a training facility. Imagine bringing in young people from this axis into that facility and then training them on these green skills that we're talking about, and then also empowering them to be able to start up something, no matter how little it is, and also putting in place a monitoring and evaluation mechanism to ensure that this is not just a training, but that after training, these young people are actually putting to use these skills that they have acquired. So there are so many things that government can do, but funding is one of the major things, and then having the political will to implement policies and programs.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I mean, okay, Moyo, we wanted to...
Maybe just to say the interesting part when it comes to climate space, and Blessing can be a witness to this, is our government is really at the forefront at the global space. And now, it's really dicey when I say this though. Yeah, we are. So when we're talking about the national, we call it the NDC. So we call it the National Determined Contributions. That's like the benchmark to know what your commitment is or what you're doing in your country towards actualizing the net zero. So the net zero is the net zero 2050. it's like a commitment saying that by 2050 we want to be at 0 level, or maybe for now be below 2%. But for our government, we have committed to that. We are doing that. We even have recently a revised NDC for Nigeria. It shows that the government is really into this, but the gap is we are really up there globally. In translating it to how we operate in our country, or how people understand what we've committed to, it's 0. It's still below average. Don't let me say 0. It's still below average for us in Nigeria. Because I don't want to say that, we don't want to come here saying that government is not having the policies or the frameworks or the programs. The Great Green Wall that was just launched recently is also another program to promote green economy in Nigeria. But we are saying that there is huge gap to what we've committed to and to how we translate to in the life of people in Nigeria, or in country, like we call it. But they're doing a lot. The Ministry of Environment is also doing a lot. You see how much they've also invested in young people going to COP, being at the forefront. I've seen lots of Nigerians there. And we even have a Nigerian as a negotiator, Loretta, who goes there often to negotiate at COP for youth programs or initiatives or frameworks that will benefit us. But at the government level, we have all this. Because if we say we don't have, we do. But it's not really fully translating into what we want to see on ground. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Yeah, maybe to add to what she's saying, we even have these climate policies. We have the climate change policy, and then we even have the National Climate Change Act that has been even created, like more like a framework, one action plan that is going to guide the whole process of seeing how Nigeria can achieve climate action by 2030. And this document, in fact, the National Climate Change Act, we have the National Climate Change Committee now, I think that was formed, and then they had a program some days ago. So I see the Nigerian government is trying to do something about climate change. So let's see how it goes. We don't just want the plenty policies. We have policy documents out there, and we look very serious, like Moyo did in the global stage, because Nigeria was one of the few developing countries that brought about their pledge for the NDCs, and they were applauded at the global stage for being so proactive in creating their own NDCs. But then we don't just want to see that, we want to see the results after that. After this, what next? Because that's the question we need to ask. So what next? What has changed? We want to see change at the end of the day, especially when it comes to providing green jobs. The policies are there. You know, Nigerian policy is not the issue. Creating policy is not the issue. But implementing this policy and then reaching the most marginalized group, that is where we have the issues. And then, you know, including young people in this whole process is another issue that we have. But I'm happy with what the Ministry of Environment and then the Department of Climate Change is doing currently, seeing how they can involve youths in the whole decision-making process that they are making. And we are hoping that this is going to bring something positive, let's say in a few years to come, where we can say that we have been able to achieve, we have been able to close the gap of unemployment through the production of green jobs, because at the end of the day, that's what we want to see. That's the reason why we have all of these plenty policy documents. That's why we have the National Climate Change Committee, you know, working on these programs to see how that can be brought to.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I agree with the three of you, because the truth is the fact that there are a lot of policy, but it's the implementation and the monitoring, the evaluation. It seems after the creation of the policy, it's just, okay, we are done with this one. Next policy, please. We are done with this. Okay. It looks like that because Nigeria actually have a lot of good policy, good law, but the implementation of those laws is the issue that we have in this country. I'll go over to you again, Moyo. Okay. I know you mentioned Maraba, right?
Yes.
So, more examples. Do you have more examples of youth-led initiatives that are using these green skills to create opportunity for young Nigerians?
So let's start with the, and I'll pick Blessing because she's here, then I'll move to other, because I really don't know the community name again, but there's a community in close to Area 1, Axis, where we work with the women. Blessing Initiative led that action, and it was really something that we went there to just teach them. It was young people, different organization. It wasn't just she led it, but we had other platforms join. like VSO Youth Group, YALI. I'm always there even as an individual everywhere. But what we saw was after doing this, I remember the day was sensitizing them. Then few weeks after, she said, "Oh, these women I've gathered a lot of bottles. They're asking where am I going to drop this?" So this was youth-led action, right? But it became a citizen-led event at the end of the day because we only went there a couple of times to tell them this is the issue, these are the benefits that you can do, and these are the things you can also do yourself. And we've seen the woman. I've not been to the community after then, but I've seen progress reports from her, and I've seen about how those women now have someone come pick the plastic. So that's one. The other one could also be even advocacy. This, when it comes to advocacy, I usually say this. There is no advocacy that is so much. It can never be too much because you might think you have the knowledge and you're speaking to someone that you assume understand, but they don't. So when you keep advocating, is you trying to pass the message across and also influencing decision makers. So we keep talking about it, and I've seen lots of youth-led advocacy programs. You mentioned what has changed. What has changed is an advocacy hashtag from CSDevNet. I'm trying to get the full name. So the full CSDevNet is an acronym though. But it's also an advocacy action by their youth group. So far, they've been checking with government that all the policies, especially when it comes to climate financing, because we have a lot of money being pumped into that, and they're saying that what has changed so far with the policy, with the funding, with the actions, with the commitment, how are we seeing those changes? That's another youth-led action that I've seen thrive, and this is even an online action. We've seen it thrive even beyond Nigeria, going to Kenya. PAGJA also key into it at some point. VSO key into it. VSO is an international organization all the way from the UK, keen into that, supporting a youth-led action that started in Nigeria. So there are various ones like that beyond the physical one, and the internet has really helped to amplify the voices of young people now. We've seen competition. Recently, this year or last year, I know Oxfam also did a competition around something towards promoting climate change actions, and we've seen lots of that. So I would say, or also one we organized in YALI just a few days ago to commemorate the Nelson Mandela International Day was another climate action for our fellow citizens who are affected by flood in Trademore Estate. So when they talk about flooding, mitigations against flooding, and also things like that. So we've seen a couple of that. And that was also done in collaboration with another youth organization all the way from Lagos and Bauchi. So there are a couple of youth-led activities, and I'm proud to be identified and to be part of the majority of them. But I've seen them also being impactful because this is young people speaking out for themselves and by themselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that elaborate answer, Moyo. A blessing from your angle, what are the sustainable practice or eco-friendly practice that youth can use or do in their workplace to promote sustainability?
So there are so many of them. I think I'm going to start by saying that, first of all, these young people need to know what these practices are so that they can engage in. And then they also need to understand how these practices will help develop the society and also serve as an income generating activity for them, more like a motivation. Because one of the challenges we have around climate action is when you get people to do something for the environment. We are indeed doing something for the environment, but if there are no benefits, people are not encouraged. That's the challenge we've had in the field so far. So if we want to involve young people in some of these eco-friendly activities, we need to carry out this mass awareness program, which is already ongoing, to let them know the opportunities that are involved in them. Some of which involved recycling, that's circular economy, like we mentioned before. My colleague at EcoCycle, Sadiq, what they do is they train young people on how to make bricks from pure water sachet, and I think pure water sachet, and it's so formidable and so strong, and you can use it like in cement is now expensive. And then while I was at VSO, I had actually led a training program where we got plastic bottles and then we fill it with sand and then we use it to build like sitting slabs. So instead of having like 3 bags of cement, that is now expensive, we use like barely, we didn't even use up to half. So we now use the plastic bottles. And then you had a school now that had, you know, a wall, a half wall that we call a sitting slab to sit on, you know, because that's like an opportunity. So if these people know, my colleague has said they even built a toilet with plastic bottle and sand. Yes, a toilet for schools. So you could imagine this is an opportunity. You could start by building structures with this, with very minimal resources, and then you're making your money. You will not know how much these people sell these paving bricks. In fact, let me even take it to another one. There's this lady I met once I think she was invited for an event in Abuja. Her surname is Lasisi. I think I forgotten the question. But her surname is Lasisi. What she does is it's really amazing. So she converts pure water sachet, and some other what you call detergents or sachet, and then she makes school bags, she makes handbags, she makes shoes, she makes bangles, very, very beautiful things. And if you go ask the price, it's really pricey. When I asked how much is a bag, she was like 25K, and I'm like, do you understand? So imagine having this income generating activity, and then you are able to now turn this thing that was originally called or originally known as waste, and then you're converting it to something very valuable, and then you are making so much money. Now she exports some of these things abroad. And she's making her money. It started like a child. At some point, she was like, nobody believed when she started. But she was able to identify a niche in this green space. And then she's doing something around it. So first thing is get the awareness that, oh, this is my space. And this is something I can do while I'm preserving the environment. I'm also generating income for myself. If young people identify that niche, it's really going to be helpful for them. At this point, you may not be waiting for the government, you know, to come and provide maybe centers for you. You have found your niche. So I've mentioned paving bricks, I've mentioned making bags and all from recycling. And then you also have interior deco, for instance. So some people use these cups, these plastic cups, you know, to do things like where they used to do very beautiful interior decoration. So imagine you say I'm a green interior decorator or an environmental interior decorator. Funny enough, what is happening in society today, if you bring a solution and your solution is eco-friendly, you stand a greater chance of being considered than people who are bringing non-environmental friendly solutions. Everybody wants the, you know, eco-friendly kind of like solution. So just like if someone who does interior decoration, or I do building and all of that, and then my process is eco-friendly, I'll easily find people who want to buy into the whole process than you know, me using the usual material, the cement and all of that, because people love the creativity. So that's the good thing about that. So it's to identify the opportunities, identify the value chains in this process. Another opportunity could be even plastic sorting. Like the community we trained, I think the first community we visited, it was in Karamajiji. That was our first community, and we trained the women, and they were very excited because most of them didn't have any livelihood, as in no income generating activity, and they were all sitting at home, and some of them had to support their husbands and their children, and they didn't know how. When we introduced this whole process to them, they started sorting plastics. You know, most of this community, they do events there every time. You know, people come to do one activity or the other, and they always plastic littered around. Because when we got there, the gutters and everywhere was just littered with plastics. They didn't even know what to use it for. So when we introduced the concept to them that these things are littering around, if you know the value in it, you will take it very seriously. You know, it started like a joke, and then they went back and started sorting and gathering. I know of a woman, Madam Awa, she gathers and sells like every 2 weeks. And then she's making her money. Although she works extra hard to be able to sort and gather them, but she's happy that she's able to support her family now. Now, these are women doing these things. So you could have young people, if you don't pick, maybe because it's kind of a little bit, you could at least help in the whole process of, you know, taking it to the recycling plants, or just find yourself in the value chain and then do something, you know, that will end you probably an income generating position at the end of the day. And I think this ways, and they're talking about clean energy now, for instance. There are people who go into the sales of solar panels, and then some people go into energy conservation jobs, like, oh, these appliances I'm selling, unlike this other one that, consumes more energy, this one reduces energy, and then it still provides the same support that it does to the house. So which one will you choose? People will want to go for this one. So you just find where you want to place your need. And the thing about these opportunities is that if you have been able to find a niche and you've been able to contribute effectively, you will definitely find support. If not from the government, then from international people. Because right now, the question now is who has creative ideas, who is going to bring that idea that is going to help, preserve this environment and this failing climate that we're already in. So people bringing up innovative ideas. I mean, there are even grants around for innovative ideas in the green space. If you're able to find a niche, instead of seeing problems like we do in Nigeria, pollution, or gutters blocked, so you're blaming the government, you're blaming this government has gone, that one has gone, this party, that party. You could sit down and then look at these problems and then identify a solution. And that becomes your niche. You now become like a sole controller of that particular niche because you have this knowledge, and then before you know, you do not have competition. I mean, you are growing and then you're making your money.
Thank you so much for that elaborate answer, Blessing. I think I now understand why UN said that there will be 8.4 million jobs during the transition, because these are jobs opportunity that you're just mentioning, just from waste, as we call it. Thank you so much for that. And going to my honorable again, going to Samuel. Okay, so Samuel, Blessing and Moyo has given us a lot of examples of a youth-led initiative taking action, climate actions, and Blessing also mentioned great ideas and practices that youth can do. From your angle, what are, youth are like, let me not say youth, young people below 30 are like half of the population of the world already.
True.
Right?
True.
So what do you think the government, or what do you think youth, not the government, now, what do you think youth can do to create more awareness in community about sustainable practice like the one that was mentioned? How do you think youth can create awareness in their community?
So it has to now begin with those of us who understand these green skills, how it works, and the opportunities that are there for young people to begin to sell out this narrative to other young Nigerians. The truth is that there are people who may not have the opportunity to maybe come out of their communities, to intermingle with people from other places who have this knowledge and then learn from them. But if we begin to take this awareness to the communities, just like they did for Karimajiji community, now you can safely say a section of the people in that community who attended that awareness campaign and program now know that they can make money from this waste, so-called. So if we begin to take these initiatives down to our local communities, I think it will make great sense, and it will make an impact in the lives of young Nigerians. Now, tying it to those of us who are in the parliament, because the truth is that the Nigerian Youth Parliament is a replica of the Nigerian Senate. It has 109 membership from the 109 senatorial district of the Federation. So you have, for every senatorial district, there is a representative at the Youth Parliament. Now, there can be a collaboration, a partnership between organizations that are already creating this awareness and doing this, this training on how this waste can be recycled, to the point that it is now taken down to the senatorial districts by members of the parliament. Because the truth is, a lot of people do not know that they can do so much with very little resources. You can imagine having a partnership with the Nigerian Youth Parliament. Okay, you guys are 109 from all senatorial districts in the country. We want you to take this message down to your senatorial districts. Set a target. Let's say, for instance, we would appreciate if you'll be able to reach out to maybe 3 communities or 4 in your senatorial district with this awareness. I think it will go a long way in making people realize that there are so many opportunities in this space, and that they can actually tap into it. But unfortunately, just like she said, when you try to engage many young people, the first question they're asking you is how much is going to be. like sometimes it makes me feel bad that you're trying to, okay, guy, what's up? Let's do something like this now. Like, okay, we're going to do, but alpha, how much? You understand? And they fail to see that they can actually contribute something to making Nigeria a better place for all of us. Because the moment we are doing all of these things for the environment, we are indirectly doing it for ourselves. Because all of these environmental hazards affect us and our livelihoods. So if we're able to do that, I think it will go a long way. And for the centers that we have around the country that are functional, that are working, we can decide to, as a way of commemorating the World Youth Skills Day that just happened in July. So many people could actually not do anything to commemorate that day because there was no support of any kind, and they didn't have the right partnership to be able to put up one thing or the other to encourage young people to acquire these skills. There are so many things. You talked about solar panels, clean energy. Some people install solar panels, but they don't know how to do turnaround maintenance. You can imagine young people going to learn this skill of maintaining these panels and how to even maybe recharge or reboost the batteries and all of those. It's actually going to create so many opportunities for young people. We will talk about the wind turbines. There are so many of them that were built by government, but because of the poor maintenance culture, today they are nothing to write home about. You go to the popular UTC, generators will just kill you. Sometimes you are in somebody's workspace, the fume from the generator is choking you. So you can imagine if we transit into using clean energy, solar. We no longer have the noise pollution, we no longer have the carbon emission, and a lot of other things. And then it will also reduce our overdependence on petrol. Begin to use other sources of energy that can actually enhance our livelihood and all of that. So there are so many things that young people can do. It begins with just an individual. If I summon the courage to go about this, even if nobody else understands what it is, by the time I would have successfully carried out one awareness campaign, somebody somewhere would see it and would want to key into that thing. And before you know, it begins to spread and then begins to get across all parts of the country. But just like I said, you can hold the parliament on the neck, right? Yes, you can hold the parliament on the neck to ensure that we take part in carrying this advocacy down to our senatorial district.
Thank you so much for your answer, Samuel. My question to you, Blessing, is how can technology contribute to climate change and also creating green skills for youth in Nigeria, total unemployment?
Okay, yeah, so I think, thank you so much for the question. I think technology plays a very critical or vital role in providing opportunities for young people around the green space. Because some of the opportunities in the green space is centered around technology, like clean energy that we made mention, for instance, speaking of the solar panel, speaking of the energy conservation bulbs. I just mentioned bulbs, for example. There are so many things that conserve energy. These are like technical know-how. And then we talk about digital skills as well. There are some digital skills that enable young people contribute their quota towards the green space. So if young people can embrace technology in this sense, they are able to embrace the whole, they are able to embrace opportunities even around the green space. Because we are talking about, let's use the recycling, for instance. We have what we call the recycling plants. So these are like things that we use around technology. When you're talking about converting even the biodegradable substances. Now, these are not non-biodegradable. This ones don't pollute the environment, but people still convert it to humus, like things that kind of serve as manure to the soil. It still requires a technical know-how. It cannot just be done manually. So the opportunities that are available for the green space is centered around technology. So exposing young persons to this technical know-how is going to help push us further towards engaging us in the green space and then providing more green opportunities for young people.
Thank you so much for that answer. From your angle, Moyo.
So I would just say, using or leveraging on technology into various categories. One, as a learning tool. Second, as a medium to also sell yourself. So we understand that in this space where people say, oh, I don't have access to even, I can't pay someone to teach me this skill. Yeah, it's open to you. You have your mobile phone. You can always do the research and do that. I know of, maybe not in the green space like per se, but I know of a school where they call it a safe space school, where you just go learn any skills. And what do you do there? You go online and learn about them step by step. Also, we have this training where people say one day training to come and learn economic skill, one day training to come and it's just the way to start. But you're also open to learn on the internet. You can go browse, do all those things and learn more about it and do your research as well. But it's also another platform where you can connect to your audience and to your buyers. Let's say you've been able to have a product that you want to sell. This is a platform where you can now exchange and also build. This is a global economy now, and that's the advantage of technology for us here. So when we're saying, and Blessing talk about the lady that makes bag now exports, you can always take advantage of that through using technology as well. And also we understand the power of social media now, where we have many social marketers selling their products. So even if it's just for you to advocate, like the online advocacy platform about what has changed, I said it's still an online. It has never been a physical advocacy platform, but it has run for up to like 4 years now, asking the question what has changed. So those are ways we can leverage your technology. One, as a learning tool, also as a medium to sell our message and also to reach our audience if you're a marketer or if you have a message to pass across. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for that. And Samuel, what are some of the policy that government can come up with to improve access to technology? One, because I mean that's an issue in Nigeria for some youth. To improve access to technology and also to encourage green skill. What are some of the policy that government can come up with? And you can also add from the aspect of the private sectors also. What can they do?
Okay, for government, there's always something that government can do. Now, when it comes to tax incentives, there are so many tech companies that have closed up because of taxes. They are not making so much, but yet they are taxed to the point that they cannot continue to run. So, and when they close up, it affects the availability or the access to these technological skills that we're talking about. So if government is able to put together a policy to give tax incentives to tech companies that are out there, it would actually go a long way. And government can actually go into a kind of partnership with tech companies, whether those in Nigeria and even outside Nigeria, for the purposes of training and equipping young Nigerians with tech skills. Imagine Ministry of Education, Ministry of Science and Tech, Ministry of Youth coming together to put together a policy to enhance all of these things that we're talking about. I think it will go a long way.
Thank you so much for that brilliant and wide explanation, because I wanted to go straight to our curriculum, but yes, you already answered my question on that curriculum, because we have a big issue with our curriculum.
True.
It's not going with what the current situation
Global
we're experiencing now. So yes, thank you so much, and thank you so much to our viewers. We're almost running out of time, but just a quick summary of what we just discussed. We discussed the green skill and career opportunity that comes with it, and also job opportunities for young people, for young Nigerians that young Nigerians can use and go into that will also be environmental, should I say eco-friendly, is not polluting our environment. At the same time, it's giving you income. It's a job for you. Yes, so thank you so much. Quick question, just a quick pop-up question for all our guests, for our 3 guests before we go. So starting with you, Moyo, in the next 10 years, what is that issue surrounding youth in Nigeria that you do not want to hear again? Maybe that issue should have been solved in the next 10 years.
Maybe it won't be solved, but something I don't want to hear again is unemployment. Because now I feel you can even talk about it. I've been working remotely for like 2-3 years now. So I know we have issues with unemployment, but people would say there's job everywhere. So why are we still talking about it? So that's one thing I do.
Unemployment, we don't want any unemployment in the next 10 years. That's cool. Okay, to you, Samuel, if you are in the position to solve unemployment today and you have the power, what's the first thing you first do?
Well, one of the first things I would do is to change our educational curriculum first, and then second of all, put up a monitoring and evaluation mechanism to ensure that policies that have been formulated, international charters that have been signed, and all of those things that we have put our necks into as a people are actually implemented to the latter. Not just going to sign one memorandum of understanding, sign one charter, and all of those. And at the end of the day, we don't see it transforming into the things we want to see. So,
thank you so much for that, Samuel. But if I was sitting in your position, I would have used that last point as my first point. But thank you so much. And to you, Blessing, what, from your own angle, what do you think are the skills that youth currently in Nigeria lacks?
If you ask me, I think it's digital skills. Like Moyo did mention that people will say we have high rate of unemployment, and then others, so the job creators or the employers will say, oh, there are jobs. We just don't have people that have the employability status to be able to take up these jobs. And then if you look at the gap between these people who do not have the jobs and the available jobs, it's just the lack of technical know-how. Because the availability of job now, especially the ones that are available, is in the tech space. When you look at that, I think the problem started with the university curriculum where you have just basic knowledge. You did the I think what you call that general studies.
GSTs.
Yes, where you just learn how to make soap.
Entrepreneurship.
And then people don't, and then you have Said in NYSC, we don't have digital. So I think that gap needs to be closed where young people are early exposed to digital space. So in that way, I think they can bridge the whole gap of unemployment.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you to our guests. Thank you so much, Moyo from YALI. Thank you so much, Samuel from the Youth Parliament. And thank you so much, Blessing Ewa from the Young Advocate for Sustainable and Inclusive Future. I got it now. Okay, and thank you so much, our live viewers. Thank you for staying with us up to now. I hope you were able to pick 1 or 2 skills, 1 or 2 green skills that will stop unemployment or will better equip you in your career line. Until next time, see you. Bye.